Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all audible.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Oh my goodness, Johnny Million, welcome to the show. How are you, my dear friend? Philip Bittner will be joining us second hour. We may have actually a call in from the protests downtown Chicago today, and I myself, after the show, I will be going to one of the protests in Las Vegas that's happening today at noon, and I'll take some video of that business that's happening. I mean, do I kind of think that maybe it might be just a place for the Trump administration to gather biometric data on people so that they know who not to inoculate against the real threat that's coming as they depopulate the earth? And Steve, like Besant and Navarro and all those guys will sit on a heap of human skulls at the end going, look how many friends we have. Maybe. But, you know, Johnny, how would you describe, do you have a sound effect that maybe explains the market this week? I feel like you would.
Oh, you mean the $1 trillion loss across, or trillions of dollars loss across
six trillion at my last count, and that's I'm sure I'm undercutting it. Yeah, that's it.
There you go.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
$5.5 billion.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, this is. I can't get live video from Wall Street because they shut down all the cameras because they thought the sight of everyone weeping profusely would drive the markets down further. But I did manage to plant a microphone in the break room.
That's for Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, it is. Let's hold on. This is.
Wait, did Chicago have to dump that? That was graphic.
I don't know. Maybe. Hold on. We are now live on Substack and Instagram in my weird new setup that, God willing, will actually work. This is one of those days where I'm crossing the streams as far as production on the live stream, and we seem very loud on the desktop. I'll fix that as well. But if I may, it's okay. I'm of two minds in this situation because on the one hand, this is real money that real people have. There are retirement funds and the like unions that are losing money.
Included.
Yeah. There are, I
have a giant 401k. Well, not giant, but like my entire retirement, aside from Social Security,
is in that. Luckily, yours isn't coming up anytime soon. So hopefully, right about the time
if it comes back around, yeah.
Right. Yeah, if it ever comes back around, you might be back to where we were 3 years ago. At the beginning of the Biden administration, when it was starting to arc up, maybe. And by then, by the way, the cost of everything will go up because the tariffs will allegedly stay in place and limit manufacturing and all that kind of stuff. And, basically cull any financial hope that people have. But I got to say, there is and that's a real situation. And I feel like the uber rich are so disconnected from the vacillations of the market, and they basically view it like a video game.
Yep.
Because it's not going to really impact their lives. If you have more money than you could ever spend in 10 lifetimes, you can't really care about. You might try, but you're not going to, because anybody you even emotionally had some sort of instant connection to like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. You could bail them out instantly and then go about your day and then pretend you did something while everybody else suffers. Like, you're not going to, Elon Musk and these guys are not going to do anything, on any measurable level to help the enormous number of people that are going to be harmed by this worldwide. But also, I got to say, and we'll get to the calculus by which the White House did this ridiculous formula they put forward, which I, with the help of ChatGPT, because I quite frankly could not figure out what the symbols allegedly stood for in this. Because let me be abundantly clear. When you present an algebraic equation that has xi minus m2 over something, and you don't tell me what each of those stand for, there's no code to it. It's like giving me a graph with no numbers on the left side and no numbers along the bottom. Like, what am I measuring? How am I supposed to go about this? So with the help of ChatGPT, which I think ultimately just combed through 20,000 websites to figure out what their excuse was, well, I'll explain that, ironically enough, their trade war equation that they came up with has zero to do with trade. That's a bold statement, Hal Sparks. Who are you? Yeah, funniest teenager in Chicago in 1987 to come forward and say, student of Second City during his time at New Trier High School, one of the youngest performers ever to set a hoof on the zany stage, youngest game show host in American history. This is true. Actor who played the first gay marriage, first HIV positive negative relationship, and first interracial marriage in the lead role on a sitcom in American history. Who are you to go against the economic brilliance, the keen, the cunning, the insight of Ron Vara, the master economist who is behind the scenes, came up with this masterful equation? Who are you? Well, I'm just an underused genius. That's all there is to it. I chose the arts because my other option was, of course, to live in a hollowed out volcano, going Dr. Evil, because I do have the capacity for that kind of evil super genius. I just chose to use my powers for goods. And I think tickling people's funny bones is a more valuable service to humanity than dreaming up different ways to wipe all of them out. Doesn't mean I can't. So let's just remember that. Let's tuck that away for a little while. Think of me as like, if the Unabomber had a sense of humor and the ability to meet girls, history would have been very different. So, that said, who are you to, judge, the intellectual capacity and the economic theory of Ron Vara, the economist behind the base, the root, the man stroking a white cat in the economic advisory office at the White House, that Trump and all of his advisors all gather around, and wait for nuggets of, I don't know if I was, dare I say, brilliance from this man to drop from his rectum so that they can bring them on a silver platter out and present them to the world. Well, let's start with I'm a real person. Let's start with I actually am.
All right, so willing suspension of disbelief right here.
Ouch. I'm not AI generated. I am not, I've been around for a while. There's a record of my actual existence. Unlike Ron Vara. Do you know where who Ron Vara is, Johnny Million?
That name I don't know.
Okay. Rachel did a bit on this before, but there was an article in the, I want to say the Atlantic, interestingly enough, years ago about this, in the first Trump presidency. And then since then, Ron Vara is an anagram of Peter Navarro's last name. And in Peter Navarro, who is Trump's tariff and manufacturing advisor, which, can you pick one particular sector of madness where the overlap and the illusion, the Dunning-Kruger effect has risen up like a Frankenstein's monster and started to strangle the American economy more than that particular wedge of the advisor and its area. And it's one dude. It's Peter Navarro. Peter Navarro wrote a book called Death by China, and he's written other papers as well. And his theories come from a guy named Ron Vara, who's an economist who he uses to back it up. And and it's kind of perfect that Peter Navarro uses this fake created economic advisor to shore up his BS, like borderline psychotic economic theories. Isn't he the perfect economic advisor for Donald John Barron Trump? Isn't he the perfect guy to partner with Elon Musk, who wants his name associated with Nikola Tesla so badly that he bought his way into Tesla, so that you would think the brilliance of Nikola Tesla must be reborn spiritually in the body of a pudgy, philandering South African Nepo baby who took riches from blood amethysts and emeralds and spread it all over Silicon Valley in a shotgun approach, hoping some of the shoots would become stalks. And they did. And then he took the stalks and he chopped them down and used them to buy other things. And lest you think there is even a shred of forethought, brilliance, 5D chess, and you're going to hop onto the site formerly known as Twitter and blather about it anytime in the future. Twitter, which he now calls X, Elon Musk last week, before all this, sold it to his own company, XAI. His AI company now owns X, strictly for the purpose of using it as a training field for his AI. Free input of all sorts. The world of idiots that have gathered around this bring barrels of their moronic ideas and their documents and any articles they want to quote. They bring them like in buckets and pour them into XAI now via X. And everything people say, from their public profile to their responses to tweets on there, formerly known as tweets. I can't even say what I call it on the air. And your DMs are all now simply just grist for the mill of Grok. And if you ask Grok how to even out America's trade deficit with all these other countries, it'll give you the same stupid idea that Trump is putting forward, like a baseline. If you don't care about human life or the future of economics,
you have to
care.
Trust the president's instincts on the economy. The guy who managed to
Trump steaks, Trump University, Trump water, Trump vodka, Trump airlines, Trump football, and of course,
and this just in, Hal. I did a little researching while you were.
Yes.
I don't know what you were about. You were talking
diatribing,
about.
I think, is what. Yeah.
I have lost in a day over $18,000.
Yep. Yeah, and you can, you Johnny Million of all,
little Johnny Million
of all people, you can afford that more than anyone else. We got to take a break because I can. You have a true gold mine in your head, your heart, and your hands as a musician. Because as we all shift into an automated economy, people with actual skill to perform music and stuff live will actually be worth something, I think, in the world, in a world that is, where they've outsourced to androids every possible other gig in the world. We'll be back right after this. It's the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. Well, 18% less, I suppose. Yeah. Man,
it's stark to see it, because somebody in the chat was like, I just checked my 401k and it's really down. I was like, I didn't have the heart to do it yet.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah, I'm not looking.
Oh boy.
I'm
Vickery's helping us though.
Hal Vickery, thank you so much. I said this during.
He's paying directly into our retirement.
Hold on, I'm going to try to not create a loop of audio. There we go. It's like, and again, like the fact that Trump was golfing during all this, And anybody on Substack, say hi in the chat room if you could. Let us know you're there. I have a separate chat for that.
Trump look in those golfing pants, by the way.
Oh.
That horrible picture that goes around.
I so need the look at my titties.
Oh yeah,
like fat bastard
in my belly. I'm dead sexy.
Right. I think we do have that quote from let's see.
I'm rich and I'm dead sexy.
Right.
There we go.
Yeah. But that whole like, look at my titties. Yeah.
Oh, hello there.
Right? It just gets you. It's fantastic that way. It really does work.
In the chat, Martin Tootin in the chat says, I've gone from Johnny Millions to Johnny Thousand.
Ouch.
Pretty much.
I'm going to have to say that when we're coming back.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll be Hal Spark. I'm down to 1.
30 seconds, gents.
Thank
just
you.
attrition at this point.
Yeah. Welcome back. I'm Hal Spa. And we're coming back soon. Oh, there they are. Hi, chat room on Substack. Bonjour. And Instagram, what about you guys? You guys there? I hope so. There you go. I think I see you. Yep. Throw us some love if you would. Boost us in the algorithm. It's free.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Okay, so I gotta say, I watched Besant and Lutnick and Navarro on their batten down the hatches interviews while Trump golfed, and apparently. And by the way, somebody mentioned during the break that we need to start calling you Johnny Thousands because you were you've been hit so hard on your retirement. Yeah. Hopefully this ends before you're Johnny Nichols. And you end up being you sound like a gangster from the.
You're now Hal Spark.
I'm now Hal Spark. I've lost all. Yeah, I'm down to 1 spark, which is all I need. So, it just takes
sexy.
Yeah.
Really
can't start a fire without a spark. Just goes fire. See what I mean? You just need 1. So, man, this watching, excuse me, his, I don't know, I hesitate to even call them advisors because they seem to be they're sort of Rasputin whispering in the czar's ear to let it burn. You could. The big worry that I have, and I had the same issue during, honestly, during Trump 1, was if you were going to cull the herd, including the more problematic people in your own party, in your own base. There are few better ways to do it than to mismanage a crisis of global magnitude. And either they lucked into, or the fact that, again, Donald Trump gave the Wuhan lab the ability.
Wait, did you see what Act just put in the chat?
I did not.
It was with a super chat here. Don't forget how Fox News took down the stock ticker Chiron for the first time in 28 years.
Wow. They pulled it off the air?
I did not know that.
I didn't either. I didn't see them do that. But I got to tell you, there's so much turd polishing going on over there that and it's not going to get better. Everything I've heard from all these folks, and I'll have after the next break, I'll play a piece of the Navarro stuff where he's saying it's, I guess fundamentally the hard part to, if you're going to cull the herd, if you're going to say, you know what, we got too many useless eaters, as Henry Kissinger used to say, or I guess the parasite class, which is what Elon Musk has referred to it. And you just wanted to kill off a bunch of people. You just think there are too many people. We've been keeping too many broken people alive. And I know people are like, this seems kind of an extreme piece of rhetoric, but if you listen to the story of Donald Trump's nephew who had a disabled son, and he actually asked him like, hey, why don't you just let him go and then you can buy a condo and move to Florida with that money instead of just trying to keep him alive because he really doesn't know you're there. Like, just the cruelest, grossest, most dismissive thing. And again, for all those, like, it was a lie that he called people suckers and losers. How can you even believe that? Well, because he said of a POW, namely John McCain, that he's not a hero because he was captured. That's the same guy who says that. I didn't even need him to say more than that. That's enough. It's enough that he derided prisoners of war as not being heroes. That's enough. I don't even know why you have to go further, but apparently their fealty to him knows no bounds. But if you're gonna white people, and the last time it didn't work, and didn't take enough of the red state fools who don't want a vaccine, and this time you got to do it with a bunch of different stuff, including I don't know, measles, right? We'll get them one way or another. The other way you do it is if you cadaver the economy, people are just going to, look at what happened, like traders did in the 1930s, and that was back when they were only representatives of the people that they were buying and selling for. They weren't, the rich in that regard. Now, retail traders and retail investors rather, and I guess retail traders, I guess too, because there are people who do as like a cottage industry, are going to be slaughtered by a lot of this, and they know it, and this is their way of just shaking the crab bucket. There used to be this theory that if you wanted to, that the ruling class, one of the ways that they could guarantee their dominance, even in a world where education was more democratic and available to everybody, and that they would have to compete against a broader base of humanity than in just the rich, inbred, dopey kid of their other neighbor in the Hamptons. The way you did it was every so often you wreck the economy on purpose. You tip it off, and then everybody who was even close to getting a toehold gets shaken back down to the bottom of the bucket, and they have to start climbing again. And you, at a higher position, are already out of the bucket. And that's the economic theory of the Elon Musk, Peter Thiel class. They will openly say it. And it seems that in there, the biggest phrase I've heard from the economics folks this week is nobody really expected him. And you know me and broad, expansive terms like nobody, everybody, everything, and nothing. And whenever you talk about politics or economics or just humanity, nobody thought he was actually going to do this. Okay, every Harris voter thought he was going to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't the only reason to vote for her, but there were a lot of reasons to vote against him as well. And one of them was, he's not kidding. That Project 2025 stuff, he's going to implement it. He's basically signing pages of it into temporary laws, executive orders. That's all he does now, is sit there and sign 2-page pullouts of Project 2025 with his signature, make them executive orders, and they shovel them along. And he's like a little stamp jockey for, chapters of Project 2025. And we knew it. We said it. And we weren't kidding. And again, I was saying, like, we need dozens of ways to say I told you so, just for some variety in our lives going forward. But the question is, what is the message? Summer asked me, my girlfriend, she sees a lot of these people on Facebook, and they're the, friends of hers or people who tacitly supported Trump during this period or voted for him because of immigration or trans issues or something, one thing that they just got stuck on. A bunch of them voted because of the RFK joining. There's a lot of these like anti-vax, hippie, no fluoride crowd that largely you would think is social democrats that all of a sudden flip to Trump because they think I don't know, the Democrats want to fluoridate you to make your brain soft so you'll accept no voter ID so that immigrants can vote them out of existence. Like there's this cascade of idiocy this dominoes of dumb ideas that fall after whatever one you flick. And this is, I have to say, like she was like, what is their response? How are they taking this? And we were, and I was like, all of them are just saying, wait and see. That's all. They're just saying, I trust him. I'm going to wait and see. When the damage has largely already been done, the dominoes have been flicked. And it is, if you actively want to destroy the sort of fabric of world trade, it was already, as the shift was happening, before it actually can do like a reshoring and a genuine transition, and you just are impatient or stupid, or you actually don't want it to be solved, this is how you do it. You flick that domino, and then you go golf. We'll be back right after this. It's the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, infotainmentwars.com, and of course you can support the show if you have the means at all. And if you don't, please don't. If it makes you nervous to be a Patreon or any of that stuff right now, I'm one of the few people online that will tell you, I'll figure out a way to make do. You keep your money if it makes you nervous at all. If you can't help, please do. But if you don't, if you're at any trepidation at all about the future, just pause it right now. It's okay. Love you. Trust me. We'll make it through. We did it during COVID. We'll do it again. But hang in there. We'll be back right after this. So hold on.
The Dow hit 50.
Hold on. Let me see if I can at this point.
Cars again and all sorts of kitchen cabinetry. And by the way, the shrimpers down in Louisiana will be able to have a decent living down there instead of having to get hammered by Vietnam and Thailand with all that. And the big picture here, Michael, is that it's time, it's decades past time for us to bring back our manufacturing and defense industrial base so that we have both economic prosperity and national security. We can't keep sending $1 trillion or more offshore every year along with our factories and our jobs, and then let foreigners come in and buy our housing, and buy our office buildings, buy our farmland, buy our food supply. Can we talk about that, Michael? We're having a moment in history here.
How practical is it to think that with the U.S. at near full employment, if those manufacturing jobs were to come back, that we'd fill them? And that they wouldn't be filled by robots. I mean, I'm questioning now the objective at the end of the road, according to the administration. Quickly.
Yeah, I've said this a bunch of times. Anybody who's building a factory that's going to take 3 or 4 years to build isn't going to have any people in it. Apple's iPhone factory that they'll build here is going to be a giant vending machine the size of a city block. So that's Smirkanish talking to Van Morrison.
Respond to that if you don't mind before we run out of time.
Sure. Liberation Day, President Trump's speech, we had Brian get up from the UAW and tell everybody about how there's empty factories, unutilized factories in Detroit. We're going to fill all that up. They're going to be high-wage factories. It's going to be beautiful. We have 3.
Jesus Christ. Just... And to tell people that, it's going to ride in.
You're locked into the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So, Michael Smirkanish had Peter Navarro on, and basically they had these talking points that they were pushing and all these points. And I'm going to play a little needle drop on this right now, but I want you to just kind of understand it takes the fastest to retool and rebuild a factory if you were going to make it into something else is 2 years minimum if you have the funding fully. And then unless you automate it like crazy, the cost of whatever good you were making in a Vietnamese factory or Chinese factory or Mexican factory or whatever is going to be exorbitantly higher if you have the exact same number. Let's say you have 1-to-1. There are 50 people working a line in Mexico, and you bring it up here and you have 50 people working the line. The difference between somebody making $8 a day and someone making like $150 a day on a line for real, that's barely including any of the benefits. What do you think the price of the item they're making does? And if you give somebody a tax break, like Trump is saying he's going to do, and it ends up being an 8% tax break, but the cost of everything goes up 35%. What you're really doing is taking the tax burden that the wealthy have at all and shifting it to all the consumers and making them go, hey, we gave you a huge tax break that does not make up for the cost that's being dumped onto you, so that you become the new tax base, that the poor and the lower middle class and the middle class become the tax base by which the government runs, which is the whole point of this. This is the revenge of the billionaires.
Yep.
And this is why, when we ran mostly on tariffs, it was a robber baron class that made all the money. When he's saying we were the wealthiest, it wasn't even per capita, because he doesn't actually believe in the concept of per capita. He wouldn't even bring it up in that regard. He's like incapable of even understanding the concept.
And when you say per capita, there's many per capitas. It's like per capita relative to what?
So the idea that he even that's a real quote.
I remember that. He does not understand.
Not at all. But he wants to go back to, and all these guys want to go back to, a robber baron system. That not only is he not going to do anything about income inequality, he thinks that all the work that has been done is far too much. That wage growth in the middle class that pushed them into the upper middle class was a mistake. And that he obviously knows that on a level playing field of intellectual competence, there is no way Eric Trump and Don Jr. can compete with the average American if they're continued to allow like 2 years of community college for free. So that's got to stop. So listen to this.
If those manufacturing jobs were to come back, that we'd fill them, and that they wouldn't be filled by robots. I mean, I'm questioning now the objective at the end of the road, according to the administration. Quickly respond to that, if you don't mind, before we run out of time.
Sure. Liberation Day, President Trump's speech, we had Brian get up from the UAW and tell everybody about how there's empty factories, unutilized factories in Detroit. We're going to fill all that up. They're going to be high-wage factories. It's going to be beautiful. We have $3 trillion of investment already committed. I think that's like a substantial part of our GDP, and it's going to be great. And
That's it. It's gonna... Excuse me. It's gonna be great. Now, let's say if it does work, the arc of a shift this big would at least be a decade before you see a balancing back to where you were. Secondly, the idea that anybody who is building a factory right now is building it to have production lines like the mill that was closed in Slapshot or Lucille Ball's chocolate factory, where there are dozens of people working on a line, is absurd. It is insanity. It is goofy to the point of like nobody even wants it. Like, people in America do not dream one day that their child will work in a plant that uses acetylene torches to weld things together, and the solution by which they do it has mercury in it. Like we're not there. And even if, and this is the whole point, even if you did it, presume that it would be all people and not automation, which, by the way, Elon Musk is whispering in his ear that these will be the contracts you'll get, and you can invest in my company, right? And we'll be the manufacturing base of the future. We'll just make money hand over fist, even though when the cost of labor goes to zero, what do you charge for stuff other than resource plus the slice of profit? It's just silly. Just the price would have to drop, and then your margin stays the same. It's just weird. But you can tell that's what they're telling him. You can tell that is what they are whispering in his ear. And again, if anybody starts a factory and they're going to build it, it's going to take 2 to 3 years to get off the ground. And the idea that they would plan for one where it's all going to be people working in it like it's the 1930s is absurd beyond measure. They're going to be giant vending machines that have like 6 people, techs working on them. And those techs are their pay will be decent, but they'll be like security guards, night watchmen on a warehouse with nothing in it at a certain point because of the amount of automation and AI and like self-solving electronics problems. If the thing goes awry for a couple of hours, they shut it down and go move a piece of I don't know, track back on that broke. Maybe I don't even know what they expect the humans will be needed for, except to retool the place and move on. It'd be like construction jobs on these places. Come in to build it, but then after that, it's over. And everything, the Optimus robot, you can argue that, like, for all the pomp and circumstance around it at Tesla, the entire purpose of it is to remove the last remaining humans from the floor of the Tesla factory. That's why they want them. That's why they have to be humanoid, is because there are elements of just working on cars, because cars are built for humans, that you need a robot that that has hands to do that kind of stuff. And so we'll all be robot maintenance.
Got hands.
Yeah, right. They will all need, all of our jobs will be robot maintenance or bust. And I cannot listen to like Elon Musk talk without hearing
The Illudium Q36 explosive space modulator.
Like it's just like cyber dribble.
No.
Everything is third tier. Like that there was a scene in, I think it was Endgame, the Avengers movie, where Scott Lang comes back and he shows up at the gate, and Captain America and Black Widow are there, and he goes, any of you know anything about quantum physics? And Black Widow, because she's a super spy who gets close to her victim before she strangles them with a garrote or whatever, says only enough to make conversation. That's it, right? That's her thing. Only enough to make conversation. That's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is, for all practical purposes, an asset of Russia, just like Trump is. That only knows enough about his industry to make conversation, and he can, Steve Bannon's baffle him with BS plan, strategy. Is the exact same way that Trump became a builder in New York with his dad's money, and the exact same way that Elon Musk became a techno cyber genius with his dad's money and his mom's guidance. We are in the realm of this, and by the way, this is not, historically speaking, this is not the first time the world has been in this situation. We've had second generation syphilitic inbreds running the world before. And we had the Black Plague because of it. The response to the Black Plague was slowed by the fact that you had, monarchical leaders, the son of the son of the son of the son of the son, who had no idea what was going on, mad with power, never really studied any of the things that they pontificate about. Yes, King George, and they all have this like inflated ego mixed with total ignorance, and the world's been through this. The scale of it is that I love how they always like it was the Dark Ages, except for all the countries that weren't participants in it, right? In the same way that like the Ottoman Empire, terror streak, didn't really bother the Mongols at that time. It's always relative by distance. Now we're all connected and we can at least see it. And what we pay attention to in this world shows our morals and where we are as much as our response to it, because there are so many things to prioritize. Some stuff's got to go, and you can tell what people care about by what they feel can go. And Donald Trump, and I think this sums it up, that a lot of noise has been made, and we got to take a break in a second. We'll come back, but a lot of noise was made about the fact that they were going to do this at 3:00 on Wednesday, his little liberation day, his liquidation day. He was going to do it at 3:00 on Wednesday. 3:00 on Wednesday. And the White House team punted it till 4 because they didn't want him on the air for an hour while the stock market cadavered. They didn't want, because they knew it would happen. Yeah. They knew he'd be on Fox News, and they knew the ticker at the bottom would just start to dive as soon as he said it, which they only had a chance that next day. And so they chose it, they moved it to 4:00. I would argue, and everybody's like, because they knew they didn't want him on the air. It's also why they did it on Wednesday instead of Monday. The reason they did it on Wednesday instead of Monday was that there would only be 2 days for the stock market to start going down before the weekend. Because they knew the damage would be done. These are a bunch of buy the dip rich people who are sitting on cash. Warren Buffett got out of the stock market 6 months ago because he believed Trump on the tariffs. He didn't get that rich by being stupid, and he's sitting on cash waiting for the bottom. And the only people who know where the bottom is, technically, is Trump and his advisors, because they can flip the switch and have everybody go, oh, okay, and run back into the market. And they know it. And basically, they missed 2008. They missed the post 9/11 dip. They missed the COVID dip. And now they want to just make their own.
Yeah.
All the talk about, American manufacturing and heyday and golden age and blah, 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 I got to say, looks like a mask for creating a dip so they can buy it. A dump and pump, effectively. The inverse, a put. That's what it looks like, more than anything else. Whether Trump is aware of it or not is the question, because from world leader standpoint, from the people who've been taking his calls and making calls to him, they all think he's sundowning on an amazingly drastic level, worse than Biden ever. And
this I believe.
And that's not getting any better. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Whew. And he wants his tax cut, and he wants to raise the debt limit $4 trillion. Like, I don't want to hear anything from these idiots about fiscal conservatism ever again. The luckiest person in the
economy every single time.
Yep, every single time. And the luckiest person in the world right now, Pete Hegseth. I mean, unless he's got
because the focus is off of him.
Yeah. Yeah. And then oil takes a dive, which is like was going to happen anyways. But then it drops even further because of demand. How do you... All right, well, I got to save this for the air because this is another thing.
Yeah.
This... Like, it's so dumb. It's just... and I'm really trying not to swear. And I don't even have, it's not like I have a ton of stocks. I have like some retail like tech stocks because I think they've got long game to sit on them, but I'm not.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
The reality of the stock market and the reality of the manufacturing base in the United States, and a lot of people are like, I just said in the break that I was like, I'm trying not to swear on the air, and like I said, I don't even have a lot of money in the stock market. Most of the stuff that I have with the idea that, through thick and thin, that when I'm 80, maybe I'll draw on these things because I think they're the kind of stocks that may not even flourish for another few years, or like tech stocks and stuff. I'm a nerd that way, so it's more like investing in the kind of companies because I think they're worthwhile and they'll benefit humanity long time. I know I'm nuts, but I'm not going anywhere, and so I haven't lost any money because I don't intend to cash out in this regard. And day traders I have no sympathy for whatsoever, because people who, like, if you've got a company, like, investing in a company to me sounds like a promise or a sacred trust or something like that to me. And I know it's old-fashioned and silly, but the idea is that if you believe in the company, you put money in there, and then eventually if the company grows like you think it will, then you can take some profit from that fact because you helped it grow, right? It just, that seems reasonable to me. I don't know. It doesn't seem like, rash kind of like, industrialist capitalism, robber baron stuff. It's just like, oh, you need some money and you think this will turn into something cool. Like if a friend had a company and you're like, yeah, I'll help you get started, and you had some money to do it, like, and then later on they're like, hey, it worked. You're like, here's I can pay you back, or if you want a piece going forward, I can pay you a dividend, right? I can pay you a little bit all the time, and you'll ultimately make more than you would have. That seems fine. So I'm not really shaken by a bunch of these things in the same way. What bothers me is if people were starting their dreams this year, or last year or the year before, and it takes time to wind up to stuff. Like there were a bunch of IPOs that were scuttled, like initial public offerings where a company can, put themselves onto the stock market to try and like, okay, this is the year we have this great product, or we're going to do this great service or whatever it is. And they brought their investors in, they fought really hard to try and create something out of it. And they're like, now we're going to, do an IPO to try to raise big funds. And they've got to like punt that for years. Think about all the people they were going to hire, all the stuff they were going to build, that goes on hold, right? So, the hard part is I just think about those people, or people who are going to retire this year, or we're planning on like, okay, I retired last year, and this is the year I'm going to take out my retirement and buy a house finally. Like if you've rented forever and you're like, finally, this will be the year or whatever. And interest rates are high, but maybe in a few years I'll build the house, and then I'll reassess after a couple of years, and I'll try to refinance it when the rates go lower in a few years, and it'll balance out over the house, the term of the house, 30 years or something like that. Those people are now up crap creek. They are. It's like people who are going to get married this year and do stuff together. Like all these people, like, and so Trump decides to come in and just like needle scratch. And it's the feeling about this that Trump and his team seem to have, that at any time, if they want to get what they need done, sucks to be you. And that's what Navarro was basically saying. There was in that same interview with Smerconish, Smerconish had a caller who called in and said he has a bicycle company, and the bicycles are made in Taiwan, not in China, by the way, but in Taiwan. And this guy has a bunch of bicycles that he sells that he can't afford to bring into the country. Now, this guy does stuff to the bikes. He brings them in and he modifies them. He makes 1 or 2 different parts to kind of make them his own. But the baseline bodies and stuff, he doesn't need a fabrication plant over here. And to go to a metal fabrication plant over here and get them to make these bike frames for him would be exorbitantly expensive. He'd never be able to make a profit on bicycles in the United States right now because it's the price point on he's shearing off 2%. Now with a 34% tariff jump, there's no way he can add a 10% markup on that and sell any of these things to people. So he's just done. And Navarro's answer was, well, in a few years, we'll start making those things here. Well, in a few years, what's that guy supposed to do in the interim? Close down his shop, fire everybody who works there, go on unemployment himself, maybe, government spending, and then maybe get a lower end job and start curtailing all of his spending until maybe in a couple of years there's a factory that he could afford to possibly get them to fabricate bike frames if they're not, an automated factory that makes other stuff for bigger companies. How's he do it? And then again, the whole idea that he's got to wait 2 years for that to work. Why is it on his back all of a sudden? And again, if you know it's going to take a few years, we know manufacturers are going to do this, so we're going to start at 10, and then we're going to ratchet up to try and do this transit. We start at 10% for everybody, not this 34, 12, 80, whatever, all over the map. We started to generalize 10 with all of our active trading partners, the ones we have a deficit with. Start at 10, and then if that manufacturing for those things doesn't start coming back, we start ratcheting up on those particular products over time to eventually go, you know what? You know this is going to happen. You know in 3 years' time, this is going to reach 20%. Therefore, start prepping. Start planning now, and we've got a trajectory that this is going to go.
When you just said start prepping, I just heard Eddie Murphy doing it as an impersonation of Ralph Cranston.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I have to say,
when I do, start prepping.
You start prepping. Hamina, 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 hamina. Wow. Whoa. Yeah. And there's a lot of parallels to that joke and what Trump's economic team are doing to the economy. But I gotta say, that again, we're in this "I told you so" zone. We had Kamala Harris speaking this week, coming out there going, "Look, I didn't want to say I told you so, but I don't know how else to say it." And again, my biggest problem. Well, not my biggest problem. One of my top 10 right now with this one issue is the idea that nobody knew. Nobody could see that he was doing it. The number of economists on CNBC, on Fox News, on Market Watch, on Bloomberg, and all these things that I've had to watch because why do I have to? Johnny Million, we were in a hair metal band in high school, doing covers of stuff.
No hair.
Yeah, right.
Very little hair.
Well, now, but back then you had some. Yeah, you had.
Not much. I had I was shooting for the Michael J. Fox look.
That's true. And I had the Jackie Chan haircut. So but still, in the Beatles zone of hair, even still.
Yes.
A little bit floppy. Mop tops or whatever they called them. But why do I have to watch? Why do I have to read Market Watch and Bloomberg? Why do I have to? Why is this curse fallen upon me? But to listen to these idiots say that we thought he was bluffing, it presumes a few things. One, it presumes in the bluff that he knows of alternatives, like he's got a secondary plan, which is garbage.
Yeah.
Seriously. And then it presumes that that secondary plan itself is worthwhile. It will work at all. Whew. And then it presumes that you assume that his grudge against the rest of the world or his own delicate ego will allow him to bluff. He can't allow himself to bluff because bluffing, if you go back on it and say you were bluffing, the rest of your poker hand, the rest of the poker game is screwed. You can't bluff this early. You can't. You can't bluff right out of the gate. So it's an illusion. The idea that I don't think they, if they bought it, they should quit their jobs right now. Because it's not like, I wonder how this will affect the economy. It was, how could you be so dumb to think that this fool doesn't think the sun shines out of his own rectum and the world needs a tan really bad. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HalSparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. I literally wrote that riff because I wanted to be able to, on a drop D, do a riff that you didn't have to pick. I could tap the chords.
Oh yeah.
So nice. If you listen to it, you can actually do it. So I could play with one arm up like that. I was like, that's how that turnaround should go. Yeah. So
connect them, Phil.
He hasn't in yet. He's not in yet. I don't see him yet, but we'll get him in here as soon as he shows up. Ding dong, ding dong. It's so stupid.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
It's just so stupid.
Oh, hello there!
I swear to God, that's every time I see oh, there he is. Good. Excellent. Okay. And we'll answer Phil. And then I will, hold on, go to this real quick. Let me jump over to here real quick while I fix this. And we'll add right. There we go. And then I will go to this business. Hey, it worked. Look at that. Hey Phil, can you hear us okay? This is very okay. Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sounds good. And then, sorry, I'm trying to work on the audio on this one because it seems to very, very spiky for some reason. I need to put a compressor on it at some point in the future. But for right now, it seems to be okay. Perhaps my mic isn't even that hot, so I don't know what's up. So here we are, and I think we're all right. Does it? I'll check with the staff chat to make sure everything looks and sounds okay out there. And
I'm gonna swap out my earphones here.
I think that's wise. Okay, there we go. Oh, Substack is not up. Yes, it is. It should be up. Let me see. Substack. There we go. Copy. And then we'll go to here. I have it up. Hold on. Yeah. It is. Okay, there we go. Yep, we're live on Substack. Okay, cool. Throw us, thank you, Andrea, for putting that in. Also, if you're in Substack, throw some hearts up there. It helps us out with the algorithm. It's that you see the little heart next to the thing. Doesn't cost you anything. Just tap on it a bunch if you like what we're saying and what we're talking about and all that kind of stuff. And I think everything sounds and works pretty good. I am using 2 broadcasting softwares and crossing the streams. I'm crossing the streams. And yet, it seems to be okay. So, Phil, obviously, the market stuff has almost swamped Trump's failure to get a Ukraine deal and the like. I can't imagine what the Ukrainians are feeling about what's going on over here. Meanwhile, obviously the Russians aren't, they're not giving anything to Trump right now. Thank you guys on Substack. And
Well, the Ukrainians actually aren't paying that much attention to the tariff thing.
Okay, because they wouldn't have to.
They've already.
We're coming back. They don't 15.
Have to. I mean, they're going to get tariffed. Just because everybody else does, except for maybe Belarus and Russia and the third one.
Thank you, Chicago.
Madness.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at HalSparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn, puss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back to the show. Joining us from Ukraine is our dear friend Philip ITTNER, host of On the Edge. Please check out his show, which is on every Sunday, usually. And then, of course, you get a new episode tomorrow, Phil?
Yep. Marking the third anniversary of the liberation of Bucha. So we speak to somebody who was there and was an eyewitness to the war crimes, the discovery of the war crimes after the liberation of the city. So he was there to see bodies being collected and, mass grave and all that stuff. So it's pretty heavy.
All the stuff Tucker Carlson shrugs off. So we were mentioning, in the break, you were mentioning that the Ukrainians aren't really paying much attention to the kind of financial market stuff that's going on in the United States because they're too busy fighting for their lives, presumably. But the idea is that at some point they'll be hit with tariffs like everybody else, which is awkward and odd, obviously. And I don't know, in the countries that weren't tariffed, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that Belarus wasn't, Russia wasn't. Notably, right? Now, it could be said, I think that part of the reason is because of, sanctions exist, which are kind of in itself a more material version of that and whatever. But we are, and that keep us from buying, say, oil. And we're not buying a lot of other stuff from either of those countries. There is no market. But that didn't stop them from putting tariffs on an island that just had penguins on it. So, it's hard to kind of grasp.
I think Ukrainians. I think Ukrainians aren't paying particular attention to it, although they're not ignoring it. They're well aware of it. But as you mentioned, they've got bigger fish to fry. But also, in addition to that, any kind of honeymoon period or grace period that the Trump administration had, or any kind of good faith that Ukrainians were holding out hope for, has long since evaporated.
Right.
And they know that Trump is a malign actor. They know that Trump is dangerous and irresponsible and an idiot and all the things that we've known for a long time. Not that they didn't know it either, previously, but again, they had kind of hope against hope for him being a good thing for Ukraine. And it's clear he's not going to be. And also just, his actions. So, Ukrainians have no illusions about who is sitting in the Oval Office, especially after the attack on Zelensky in the Oval.
Right.
They were like, "Oh, we're done. We're done. No more good faith with Donald Trump. He is a boob. He's a fool and dangerous and all the rest of it." So we
go back. I will say we go back to the idea that is he. Sometimes Trump will say, and I think this is a straw man or an attempt to hide a lie with facts, which is when he says, "I'm not like people say I'm a Russian agent. I'm not a Russian agent and Russian agent." And I would argue no one ever says he's a Russian agent except the right in their saying that he's not, to defend his actions. What we believe is he's a useful idiot and an asset. And
it's certainly compromised.
Yes, right. But the idea is that it's not because they trust him to, come in like Mission Impossible on a wire and steal something or deliver them information they wouldn't otherwise get. They literally expect him to just blather stuff because they tell him how smart he is, and then he just like. And thank God, by the way, he has a terrible memory that's getting worse and an awful grasp of facts and reality, because I would be more worried about our national secrets and him just kind of blathering them to the Russians if he actually could remember stuff. But he's so wrong about things. Like he's almost an accidental double agent because he's so dumb. But with Tulsi Gabbard and others, there is a real fear that they will give genuine access to these things. It has not. Yeah.
And then there are the guys who are potentially really working in conjunction with the Kremlin, like Flynn, like Mike Flynn.
Yes.
Or Manafort, or although Manafort has kind of been put out to pasture. I don't think anybody is thinking that Donald Trump is Kim Philby or the Rosenbergs. That they're actually like taking instructions from the Kremlin and are working hand in glove. Although, who's to say? Right. I agree with you. I think the more likely explanation is that he's a fellow traveler or a useful idiot. He sees the world the same way that the Russians do, and that Vladimir Putin does. That might makes right, and morality and ethics and things like that are, constructs that, the reality is that all human relationships are binary. Either you are oppressing somebody or you are the oppressed, which is a deeply cynical way to view the world.
Right.
So maybe he shares that worldview with Vladimir Putin and is acting accordingly. Maybe he's purely transactional and he thinks that he can, gain something from a partnership with Moscow. He'd be foolish to think so. I don't think there's any doubt that something's going on between those two.
I almost feel like there's definitely one of Trump's problems amongst the many that he has is this sort of hyperfixation on all things like late 80s as far as the economics of Reagan and the cultural stuff at the time, sort of jingoistic, hyperinflated, Rambo-ish rah-rah-rah stuff that was happening in the 80s, and like the anti-crime movies, and it's not even the good ones, like the top of the line ones, like it's more like Cobra, where he's like, why can't you just catch these people and put them away? We keep catching them, and the judges keep letting them out. You got to tell it to the judge, right? I do, but that's the line, right? He's focused on that.
The U.S. government is nasty. And is the villain in so many, and not just the action movies. I mean, what is Keys except in E.T. except for an example of government cruelty where they experimented on poor little old E.T. So the narrative that our government was
the
bad
problem
and acting against us.
Well, that was. I mean, that's a mix of a couple of things that happen culturally. A lot of times when the right is looking for that kind of material to watch, and arguably the left that would, in left-wing Hollywood, open Hollywood, you can't. It's easier to make a villain of your own group than it is to make a villain of others. If you're trying to sell a spy movie overseas, you can't sell it if people partner with the Russians. You've made the Russians the bad guy, or the Chinese the bad guy, or the Japanese the bad guy, or Arabs or whatever. So the call is always coming from inside the house. You can look at that in the early 2000s. There was a big problem with that. Like every Mission Impossible is basically what we have now with Trump, which is like the leadership can't be trusted and they're out to get you. Everybody is like, you're going to solve a murder with the FBI and all the police looking for the innocent man, right? He seems fixated on those kind of things, like using that or buying into it. Now, he's never finished any one of these movies. The only movie he's ever watched all the way through, I'm convinced, is Jaws and Silence of the Lambs, because he thinks Hannibal Lecter's a human shark. So that's why he keeps bringing him up, because he's the main thing that scares him, right? But the thing is that around him, he has this he's latched onto these things and he can't let them go. And that's that's the fixation mentality of an aging brain. You start reliving stuff, you start telling old stories that are irrelevant, and the people around him apparently are spotting it. Elon Musk crapped on Peter Navarro yesterday, who is again, Trump's perfect financial advisor, because he created a fictional character, a fictional econ professor that he, and genius that he referenced, Ron Vara, which is an anagram of his last name. And, like Trump had John Barron, and Elon Musk borrows Tesla's name to give himself some weight. This is a marketing thing that they all do. And all of them, their money traces back to Russia at some point or other, whether it's Elon Musk's aluminum for all of his Teslas that are built in China comes from Russia, which is his biggest market, or Trump's obvious bailouts and the compromise they have against him. And it seems, again, I will still, to my dying day, I will say 91 was a rope-a-dope. That the KGB crowd just said, we're not going to win this. We need to fall back and pretend to be a friend. And these sappy, naive idiots will come in here and try to, have their way with us. And we'll go, yeah, we want to be in business, great business, going to be parties and cocaine and the girls and all this stuff. And send your inspectors like Scott Ritter over, and we'll make sure they're happy when they leave. And then you set this plan in motion for decades. If China can have a 50-year plan, which they don't, but whatever, the Russians can as well. And that said, in the middle of all this, the second greatest army in the world keeps getting throttled by drones built by the Ukrainians in an afternoon. The SBU drones hit in Chapoyevsk, Russia, which I will have to look at the map to find that one. 20 drones, 20 explosions at weapons processing facilities. I mean, it's not even like the Ukrainians are telling us. The Russians are filming it on their phones and posting it online. Unlike China, they don't pull those videos down.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, you're right. Trump does seem to be caught back in the 80s with his fixation on, tariffs. What was the big talk in the late 80s was tariffs, because everybody, Lee Iacocca thought that Toyota was going to eat our lunch. So tariff. And he seems to have adopted that. He seems to have adopted the late 80s and the collapse of the Soviet Union and his, going to St. Petersburg with Ivanka. And, I'm sure that he had a handler. I'm sure he had people watching him all the way back then. And then, you push forward into the current conflict with the fact that the Ukrainians are not doing what kind of everybody expected them to do, to be defeated so quickly. Those of us who have been watching knew that wasn't going to be the case. I disagree with you slightly on the rope-a-dope thing, but I do accept that there was a certain section of Russian authority and power that did go into the shadows and lick their wounds and bind their wounds, and then they came back even stronger with Vladimir Putin. But I don't know as it was as orchestrated as a rope-a-dope, because having lived in Moscow and in Russia in the 90s, there was a lot of chaos, just straight up chaos going on. And they were going to come back no matter what, these anti-Western Russian imperialist kind of the power, the security apparatus, the intelligence apparatus. They were always going to come back, but I don't think it was as planned or determined as having this master plan.
Right.
They reacted to the situation, but they always knew that they were going to come back and try to strike back at the West. So
I agree. I think that at some point what I mean is they stopped fighting to try to maintain and went, okay, this is going to happen. We're
they went
running out of
underground.
runway. And so therefore we will move back and play nice with the idea that we will strategically strike back later. And
Although
and
there were elements within Russia that were quite sincere about doing that. They got their asses kicked.
Right.
Is ASS, is that?
It's fine.
Am I
Yep.
trouble with
It's in
the
the Bible.
FAA now?
We're fine. Yeah, yeah.
FCC,
FCC, yes.
Anyhow, yes, FCC. As far as the attacks, the drone attacks that Ukraine has been conducting, I thought it was rather interesting. Several things about that is that one of the targets that they hit was Russia's only fiber optic facility that was producing fiber optics, what they've been using in their drones. So that was a major blow. But the Ukrainians are still fighting.
Yep. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Apparently, Lavrov and his other negotiating partner in the Riyadh talks had what has been described as a tantrum between each other. We'll talk about that when we come back. Putin's aide Yuri Ashkov apparently created Perfect Strangers, a Perfect Strangers episode. We'll be back.
Oh, hello there.
Sorry. Sometimes you just need it.
You remember the episode of Perfect Strangers with the Bucci tag?
The Bucci tag?
Yeah, they were playing Bucci tag. And the Bucci was a little stuffed sheep.
Oh, right. Yes.
And you couldn't be tagged. You couldn't be it if you had the Bucci. I don't know. I think it might have been a cold open. It made me laugh so hard.
Much my advice could hurt people until my advice hurt me.
Is that Jerry?
Yeah, Jerry Blank. Yep. I think my favorite one is.
You're not hearing what I'm saying.
Hold on.
You're not hearing what I'm saying.
Oh, that's okay, Doc, because you're not saying what I'm hearing.
That's okay, Doc.
Yeah. I know I have. Here's the one I can't use on the air. There you go.
We're back in 20.
Okay, thank you.
Well, okay, you got.
Right.
Is that the dude?
Yeah.
Why are you dressed like that?
All right. So. I don't know if you saw like that whole thing. They added Dmitriev.
You're
Dmitriev
locked into the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So the world's longest single phone call. I hope the Guinness Book people are on this. It has been happening in Riyadh since forever, since November. Apparently, an hour after the election. Trump started his one phone call, and they've stayed on the line ever since. And then they transferred the call to a couple other places, to Europe, and then they transferred it down to Riyadh. And now the meetings with the negotiating parties for Russia and the United States, and not Ukraine, but I mean, why should they be there? I mean, it worked so well in Afghanistan that we negotiated with the Taliban and left the government of Afghanistan out of the equation. Why not duplicate those efforts? It was just perfection. But apparently, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Special Envoy Kirill Dmitriev clashed during high-stakes talks in Riyadh over there. They came together, by the way. Lest people think that we have a negotiator or that there's a Ukrainian named Dmitriev in this. No, these are two Russians over something as trivial as a chair, leaving Americans shocked. According to the Russian news outlet Agentstv Novosti, Putin perhaps unwisely appointed these two sparring figures to his negotiating team in Saudi Arabia despite their ongoing frictions. They don't like each other, and they jockey for power. And Lavrov thinks this dude is, filling in after him, Phil? Like he's worried that this is a young upstart?
Putin loves to do this. He loves to pit people against one another, divide and conquer, and he does it internally within his own cabinet. So he may have been messing with Lavrov. I don't know. Just to kind of keep him on his toes, sort of thing. Apparently, yeah, the chair thing, and then there was also like something about the one or the other trying to call back to the Kremlin, and who could get Putin's ear first.
Yeah.
And so there was this dispute of like, well, who has the direct line to Putin, the foreign minister or this special envoy?
Yes.
And it's all about who gets to talk to daddy last.
Yes.
And who gets the straight dope from the Kremlin and the instructions. And it just shows that the things are fraying at the edges. And we've heard about this. We've heard about this internally back in Moscow within the Kremlin itself, is that he has been involved in a long, I mean, he's always done this, but apparently in the last year or so, he's ratcheted up as the war has gotten worse and worse for the Russians.
And as his brain decays, that's here's the other thing too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So
and as he gets more paranoid and deluded. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess one of the, like, they were both talking to the press as well against each other. Like they were jockeying against each other to show who knew more. And again, maybe they have an audience of one issue with Putin that we have with Trump. I mean, there's a lot of parallels between how these egomaniacal sociopaths think and how they want to be treated. But a source from the paper said, everyone meets Putin individually, and he tells each person something different, which partly explains why nobody can clearly articulate Russia's demands in the talks. I mean, that's what we're going through with Trump's trade policy. That's what we're going through with Trump's, he tells Mike Johnson one thing, but then members, of the sort of MAGA caucus in the Congress, he tells them another thing, and they both come up and go, I have the magic word from on high.
Yeah, he is literally acting like an autocrat.
Yeah, but acting like one. Because I would playbook. Well, is that the thing though, Phil? Is that he Putin is absolutely an autocrat. Putin is he believes in this. His people know to some degree he does. They know he's pretending that this is a regular democracy or whatever. They expect an autocrat. They like the idea of a tough guy. He runs everything as like that. He knows how to be an autocrat. Meanwhile, Trump is acting like an autocrat. Like it's like a presentational form of autocracy. And that's why he's doing these broad tariffy things where he does these giant moves, and it is sort of disconnected from the reality of them because he's playing house. He's playing doctor. He's playing autocrat.
The core of it is the same. The technique, the mentality. The difference is Trump is a game show host, and Putin is a trained KGB expert and a murderer. So I mean, Trump is performing at it. You're right. I think that's 100% right. I think he's doing what he thinks an autocrat would do. Moonlight over Paramore.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You remember with Richard Dreyfuss?
Richard Dreyfuss
plays the
and Jonathan Winters.
Plays the dictator.
Right.
Wonderful, funny movie. Totally underestimated or underappreciated.
Yeah, and Trump's like Dave Trump. If it was a horror film.
Yeah, okay, there you go. There's another good example of, just somebody who is playing the part, has stepped into the clothes of the president, but he really doesn't know what he's doing. Whereas Putin, I think, is trained and is cold-blooded enough that and has the blood on his hands that he's not playing at it. He knows what he's doing. There's another commonality, however. And I think that people overestimate Putin when it comes to this. And I've said it ever since Putin rose to power, and people have always kind of poo-pooed me, is that ultimately that kind of governance leads one place. You keep painting yourself into a corner, and ultimately it ends in blood and chaos and absolute dysfunction and collapse and all the rest of it. And so it will be with Putin. Eventually, Putin will leave the Kremlin, whether it's toes up or not, we don't know, but he's going to leave it because he's created a system where the strain will eventually break the system. So these two men have that in common as well, is that they're taking the immediate gain and short-term gains without thinking about, but how does this ultimately play out? What's the end game here? And neither of them, I think, are thinking about that.
Yeah, well, they here's what I think they think the end game is. The other side will blink. All I have to be is awful enough, and the other side will blink. This is the economic warfare that Trump has declared on the world is the tariff version of Russia invading Ukraine. I will just be so terrible to you that eventually, because I'm already bigger than you, in theory, you will have no other option but to bend to my will. That is what they are thinking. They think the blink is going to come. The question is what they're calling on Wall Street the put. When does the put happen for Trump? When will he blink? And that's we're all the boiling frogs right now. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the HalSparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Thousands. Also, Johnny has a live stream on Fridays, and Philip Ittner has a show tomorrow called On the Edge on his YouTube channel. Please check it out. We'll be back.
Not to get too philosophical about it, but the other thing is, I think they're all so profoundly afraid of their own death, and they have kind of, they're working themselves into this kind of like, I can leave a legacy, or somehow I can escape the Grim Reaper because I'll attain so much power that somehow I'll whatever
my scars will outlive me.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. That somehow I'll cheat the Reaper, and it's pathetic when you get to that kind of, it's like, well, you can be as powerful as you want to be, you can be as rich as you want to be, but we're all food for worms. And I think they're trying to
memento mori,
get too philosophical, or
So, Phil, when
the rest of us have to suffer.
And said that you were not to be too philosophical.
Stand by, we're coming back right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Philosophical.
Welcome back to the HalSparks Radio program.
All right.
Worldwide.
Johnny Million saving the mood with a pun during the break. What's your idea for the new segment, Johnny Million? Tell everybody.
I think during the break, Phil paused and said not to get too philosophical, so we could have philosophical time with Phil.
Yeah, it's in the future. After all this is over, we have some silver lining to look forward to. Yes, yeah.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Grow up.
Absolutely.
You're a grown man, Johnny.
Don't make him do fart sound effects, because he'll do it. Like, all you have to do is call him a child or a grown up.
Oh, I know.
And that is not.
I said I'm not.
All right. I feel like. I feel sometimes with Johnny Million, I feel like the robot arm in Iron Man.
Yeah.
And if you hit me with the fire extinguisher again, I'm going to donate you to a city college.
I was a well-respected journalist at one point, and now I am reduced to this.
Johnny Million.
You're so much better than all of us.
Johnny Million, straight man. For his I'm just saying, look, one of the greatest things about the collapse in the 1930s is that in many ways it brought back vaudeville for a final hurrah for about another decade, because nobody could afford to see a real show. So people coming up on stage in suits and just hitting each other with each other's hats while arguing became a great pastime for the American people. I'm just saying there's a potential there. And Johnny, as the tall guy in the situation, we know that there's a long storied history. And if you haven't seen the movie The Tall Guy with Rowan Atkinson and Jeff Goldblum and Emma Thompson, I pity you. But I know we have questions. I know.
I do. I got a couple.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, the first one is, this is kind of for both of you. Does anyone think that right-wing media is failing because Russia isn't supporting it anymore? That's from Jen.
Yes.
No, I think, well,
Yeah.
well, yes and no. I think they're failing for a variety of reasons. I don't think Moscow has stopped supporting them. I think they'll find another way. Tenant media got revealed, so they'll just find another way to make an in run. But I think there's lots of reasons why right wing media is collapsing, because they can't. The reason why Fox became such a behemoth is because it took the entire audience. What is happening now is that these other little outlets and the online revolution that's happening is chipping away at their audience base. So folks like Fox are really struggling. And then what's the one that's
Newsmax?
Got is it Newsmax, or that's no, it's not Newsmax, it's Shapiro's outfit.
The Daily Wire
is looking at now looking at bankruptcy lawyers and stuff like that. I think that's just because they were badly managed. But
yeah. Well, here's what I would argue:
couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of journalists,
right? It's not like anybody is stopping the money flow anymore. All those watchdogs have been called off. So, and I don't think they're afraid of, even if they break the law and are charged, unless they're charged on the state level, which is the only thing kind of keeping them in line, because states can be on the hook for companies within their borders participating in traitorous behavior, so they can file charges against the suborning terrorism. California has laws about that on a state level. So does New York, especially. And ironically, so does Texas, which is where most of these guys moved to cover their butts on this idea. But there was a huge dry up of those funds that happened, and an influx when Trump came in of like Saudi money and other stuff that has caused like a crisscross, and why they seem at odds. The other thing too is, quite frankly, they suck at their job, period. And Trump sucks at his job, period, and in increasingly indefensible ways. That's the biggest problem that they have, is that they're like this tariff nonsense and his I can solve it in an afternoon stuff, and all that is proving to be completely just hornswoggle. So they know it, and they desperately, they can tap dance all they want, but they know they don't have any good news for his fans. So they talk about anything but, oh my God, the dodges around Signalgate. Oh my God, the dodges around this tariff talk. They are trying so hard to shrug it off, and that they're just happy they no longer have to shrug off his failure to solve the Russia-Ukraine crisis or the Israel-Gaza crisis in a single phone call. It's just garbage. And he can fall back to that, it never would have happened if I was president. Well, then if you're president now, so it should stop immediately, right? If you're that powerful a leader that it would have just never happened, then it should stop happening. But it's not. So obviously that's garbage. In the same way that the wall doesn't work.
And we're expecting a renewed offensive very, very soon. That is going to be the complete opposite of what he promised, that the peace talks he'd make one phone call and another phone call and it'd all work out and it'll be done. They'll just bend the knee to me. Well, no. And we're about to have an increase in fighting here, and that's going to be hard to deny.
Yeah, that's also egg on his face at every turn.
Mistake after mistake. Exactly.
Yep. And to some degree he's aware of it. There's a story in like the Daily Beast covering it, Axios covered it as well. I think, but somebody posted it on the artist formerly known as Twitter, and it had it had a lot to do with. Let's see if this actually works, and I can show you guys this. Trump caught reading Murdoch paper mocking his tariff war, and apparently he's finally getting the news reports. This is where, and I think part of this, like leaking images of this or people getting these papers to him, are part of how I suppose we're going to see if we'll see if he starts rethinking what he's doing because of the bad press. Because again, this is all about, I think, to your point about him having, you know, his legacy or his mortality or his fear of being seen as a sucker right before he kicks off, and knowing that he's a stamp jockey for the Heritage Foundation. By the way, I must say that amongst other things in this image that they showed, his ear looks perfectly fine. Do you notice that? It's like Bob Roberts' foot, if anybody knows that reference. If you've never seen the movie Bob Roberts tapping foot at the end of the movie. Check it out. There's so many parallels. Yeah, the Tim Robbins movie. Jack Black's in it too. He's fantastic. He's probably one of the first
young Jack Black, no doubt.
Yeah, maggot characters in film, like a really early version of that kind of a person. The incel crowd. Let's grab another question before we get too far into this segment.
I've got one. I've only got this one more. This is from Gino Maynard. Please ask Phil if he has any more info about the Putin limo fire.
I haven't seen an update about that.
Interesting.
It kind of happened and then went away. Yeah, I'm not.
Can't imagine why they're downplaying it.
Not surprised at all.
Right.
Not surprised.
Why are we getting more information? Right. Somebody said, "Was it a stunt?" And I would say, was it like a propaganda hit? I don't think so. I think it looks weak. So they would avoid those kind of things. The apartment buildings that Putin, and you know that story better than I, Phil, that he basically false flagged.
They used in '99 to rise to power. I don't think this was a false flag or a staged thing by the security apparatus, because if it was, they would have trotted somebody out and they would have made a point of it. They would have paraded some poor Ukrainian schmuck or some guy that claimed to have been paid by Ukrainians, so there would have been a propaganda advantage for them. I think somebody either tried an assassination attempt, which is entirely possible, and in that case, again, we'll probably never know. Or it's also entirely possible that they're not maintaining their vehicles very well, and something,
one of his security detail was smoking near the open gas tank. Right.
Or they forgot to top up the oil and the engine seized up and turned. I don't know. But I don't think it was
right.
False flag. Yeah.
I am Ivan Ivanovich. I was very sad this week about the passing of Val Kilmer. I have to say, one of my favorite movies of his is The Saint, because the characters he created, he made those up. Most people don't know this, but when they worked on that script, the fact that the disguise part of The Saint was a very minimal aspect of it, that he would wear disguises and stuff, but he almost wanted to turn it into his version of Fletch with a touch of realism. So he created all these characters based on, instead of just using aliases, he created these entire characters based on them, including his Russian that turns into an Australian, and that part where he puts on the mustache and goes Tziko Dlumidva. He tries to, all he is watch the car or something like that. So he has to know that phrase as he walks up the steps, and he practices it, and he walks into the building just working it out and trying to find that. And it's kind of a little silly. There's one scene in it where he's breaking in to steal some tech, this little thumb drive from this safe on the top floor while this speech is going on. And he climbs all the way up to it. He pulls out his special device for breaking into the thing. And right as he's about to pick the lock, he pushes on it and the window's just open. And he's like, I love this country, right? And, it's kind of a joke, but that never changed, right? That's still, that joke worked in the 90s and it works now. And you may be right that it's just like they maybe one of his cars is electric. They have Chinese batteries. They're the old kind that if you overcharge
There
them,
you go,
they heat,
yeah.
and then they get water up in them because they have a crack in it because they ran over something because they drive it like they drive an ice car, and then later that day it starts a fire in the lithium-ion battery, and poof, there it goes. Or it could be that partisans stuck something under it, and the timing was bad, like the guy who tried to blow up the buses in Israel, who set it to 9 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. and ended up blowing up 3 empty buses that could have killed a bunch of civilians. But the guy's a moron. So yeah. So let's see. We'll gather more questions during the break because we'll be up close to this. And I want to remind everybody to check out On the Edge, Phil's show on Sundays. And Johnny Million, you're still on Fridays only? Sorry, Johnny Thousands.
I am.
Yes, it's Johnny Thousands. Are you going to change the name to the thing? No, you'll be fine. I think just hang in there. I think of you as a long-term investment. You know what I mean? When it comes to Johnny Million, I'm a buy and hold kind of a guy. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's true. I'm a long-term investor in this man because I love him very much, and we love you too as well, Phil. I'm just saying we're in with you for the duration, my friend. We'll be back right after this. It's the HalSparks video program, Mega Worldwide. So we'll take some more questions, but I do want to bring up that France and the UK have started.
So we have
Edwin
yes. Eisendrath on the line from the protest.
Okay, great. I didn't know which hour he was going to be in. I didn't hear back. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on the time, but he literally just called. So I told him that I would let you know, and then I'm assuming in the next segment, just bring him on.
Yeah, we'll talk to him at the top of the next segment for a couple minutes, and then we'll let him get back at it. Yeah.
Cool.
If you want me to hop on, I'm happy. That sounds like something you might want to. I'll hop off if you want.
It won't make a difference. We're good. It's just
Whatever
audio. He's just calling in. He's just calling in on audio.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it's really kicking off over there, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's gonna grow. Yeah.
It's gonna grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when the pain really starts, when the Social Security checks aren't coming, and the
yeah, there's a myriad of other stupid things that he's doing.
Tons of stuff. Well, I mean, I've got stocks. My portfolio is tanking. You know, thanks, Donnie.
You know.
You know. Of course, which puts you in the position of like, well, now I can't sell those shares because
coming back.
Excellent.
You want to see it bounce back.
Your program, Mega Worldwide.
So these protests are going on all over the United States, pushing back on, pick your poison with the Trump administration, and because it's kind of all poison. And Edwin from WCPT is down at one of the protests, and I think we have him on the line right now calling in. Edwin, are you there?
I am, Hal.
Yeah.
I had to walk away from the protest because it's mighty loud.
That's great. Nice. So what are you seeing? Give us a lay of the land, and is there a unifying theme there, or is it everybody's just kind of hitting all the talking points at once?
Yeah, so it's a huge crowd. I mean, I wish I could see it from up above, but it's packed. It's spilling out of the biggest plaza we have, and people are marching around. So, I had to walk, I think, 3 blocks to get to a place where I could hear you. So it's a big crowd here, and it is there isn't a yes, there is a unifying theme that we have to get rid of the people who are currently running our government. It's a coalition, and so you have a lot of energy in the community that cares about human rights, a lot of energy in the community that cares about immigrant rights. There's a lot of energy in the folks who just care that their 401k is cratered. And they may not have been allies yesterday, but you know what? They're all allies today. They figured out that a coalition means that people get together for various reasons because they want to win. And that's what we're seeing.
That's amazing. And so, how long is it meant to last? And people in the area can certainly come on down if they're hearing about this now. What do you think? Do you know? Is there a schedule? Is it just kind of
Yes, it's scheduled to last maybe another hour.
Right.
I don't know. People are having so much fun. I mean, I came down here on the L, which is what, Chicagoans do. And the party started on the L. People were just having, sharing their signs, talking about, what's really pissing them off. And it's a variety of things, as you know. And then down here, I mean, everybody's just having a great time.
That's amazing.
Because for once, we're looking around and we're not just listening to these liars lie to us all the time. Instead, we're looking at each other and talking about what we care about.
That's great. So, and from your opinion, I feel like this is the first of many. That this may be, kind of an ongoing thing that will grow as opposed to the high watermark in this regard, especially as the economic pain starts to flow across the country. What do you think the chance of this spreading across like the rest of Illinois into sort of the more rural, leany, Trumpy districts and the like?
I actually think there are protests today in some of those districts.
Right.
But I don't know how old you are, but the phrase "long hot summer" comes to mind to me for what we are going to have this summer, because people are furious, and it isn't just activists. And I don't say just activists to denigrate activists.
No, but absolutely.
Activists we expect to be out there, but this has grown much bigger than what used to be the activist community. Ordinary, Chicagoans who aren't usually out are out.
Right. And I again, the impact of these things is only going to grow over time. Like the idea that the Trump administration is going to get better and more precise in their immigrant policies so that they don't scoop up more American citizens and send them to El Salvador in prisons is fairly slim. So, and the same thing with money and with he's not going to be more open about women's rights. He's not going to go, you know what? I was bluffing about abortion. Let's take it back. Like, that's not going to happen. It's just going to get worse.
Hal, he's the worst leader America's ever had, and we've had some dogs. But this is the most dangerous, terrible leader we've ever had, and it's bad for everyone who lives in this country. It's bad for everyone who lives in the world, and we're just giving away our future and everybody else's every day.
Hey, they don't call him pervert Hoover for nothing.
In Congress that could stop him and won't stop him, shame on them.
Well, again, we've had some talk about whether or not their job is even to stop him. If not, they're enabling him or the driving force behind that. And that's there's an that because is he really, other than his fixations, does he really have any thought beyond it? So that's, and we'll see if this crowd, and I think it's more important, like the generalized area, like, what was there any standout signs that you saw or standout groups that you saw together or
there were so many. There were so many great signs. I mean, there was a woman here. She must have been, I don't know, in her 80s, and she was dressed like Marie Antoinette. Saying the last time we had kings, I got my head cut off. I mean, it was just all kinds of fun signs, strange signs, and some very powerful ones. I asked people about them. They said, we got them off the internet. I mean, people are looking around for
well, you can crowdsource that stuff.
Original signs.
Sure. Putting Chat GPT to good use. Like, give me 9 phrases that will mock Trump to his face.
Right.
So,
did we lose more money this week or hear more lies? This time the loss of money might be close to the number of lies, but we got trillions of both.
Yes, exactly.
And there were some signs like that were fun. Yeah.
Hey, I got to ask, with Chicago having little Ukraine in it, one of the largest communities of the Ukrainian diaspora, did you see any representation of those who are upset about Trump's portrayal of Ukraine?
Sure, there were Slava Ukraine signs and Ukrainians. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of the speaker crowd, but it was definitely part of the people who were here.
That's great. And like I said, I think this is
in the middle of a war. Who does that? I mean, Mussolini maybe, but not, the Italians did it, but not. But Trump changed sides in the middle of a war to be with Putin. Americans aren't like that.
Yeah, agreed. Well,
I love Chicago. Love Chicago.
Yeah, that's why we love Chicago. Edwin, thank you so much for calling in and continue your good reporting down there. And we'll talk to you again soon, probably at the next one. This might become a regular segment.
You bet. Hey, Hal, give me 5 seconds more.
Yeah, go ahead.
For those who are listening in Chicago, my show starts right after Hal's, and I've recorded most of it. I'll be back in time to take your questions at the end.
That's great. Okay, so you're delivering a show from there. That's amazing. So have a great show to Edwin, and also say thank you from all of us over here at CPT and my show as well when you run into people. Glad handing with them because I'm jealous that you're there. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care.
All right. Cheers, Edwin. There you go. That's so heartening in the middle of all this. Can I add something on top of that to make you feel even better about Chicago right now? So the Equity Arc Pathways Orchestra was this attempt to add a more diverse crowd to the classical music scene in the United States by encouraging the BIPOC community to study classical music and play instruments and move their way up in it. And they were supposed to play with the Marine Band, and of course, Hegseth and that crowd canceled it because DEI. So a few months ago, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, like 3.5 weeks ago, maybe, they performed with a group of retired military marching band people to kind of fill that gap because the Marine Band wasn't playing with them because they weren't allowed. Tomorrow in Chicago, Equity Arc Pathways Orchestra is having their finale performance of these kids who've all studied from all over the place in Chicago at the Chicago Symphony Center. It's free. It's at 2 o'clock Chicago, 2 o'clock tomorrow, Sunday, April 6th at the Symphony Center. If you go to CSO.org, that's the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.org. I want, and you're in the Chicago area and you got a free afternoon tomorrow, please go and check out the Equity Arc Pathways Orchestra finale and support these kids and this movement because literally this is one of the things that Hegseth and his crowd tried to capsize. And it came roaring back. And their finale performance is tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Chicago Symphony Orchestra, CSO.org for tickets. Make your way down there. Again, it is a free show. And you can't miss. If you've never actually seen an orchestra perform, they're doing Tchaikovsky and they're doing Coleridge-Taylor Ballad in A minor, but they're doing the Symphony No. 4 from Tchaikovsky. It's amazing. It's beautiful, and maybe this is the thing that will make you, even more than these kids, fall in love with classical music and the symphony again, because it makes the hair on your neck stand up and your arm stand up. It gives me goose pimples whenever I go and see the symphony at some point along it. Just all these instruments playing in concert. And I think it's a great example of diversity itself. These various instruments of different styles all playing in harmony and unison is pretty great. So check it out, CSO.org. Kyle Dixon is the conductor. You'll love it. Just trust me on this. The Civic Orchestra of Chicago deserves your support anyway. CSO.org. Tell them I said hi. So there, that's it. Now I think we have like 3 minutes left. So do we have any other questions before? Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Look, Chicago is one of my favorite places, and there's so many people populated that city and built that city that came from this part of the world, and we forget about that. One thing that I think we need to mention, by the way, before we go, is I don't know if anybody saw this, but if you didn't, do a quick Google search for it. Go onto YouTube and find it. Lithuania, U.S. soldiers.
Whoops.
We lost 4 American soldiers. Oh, did you lose
That's
me?
okay. No, it was just choppy for a minute. Okay. You're fine. Go ahead.
We lost 4 American service members. Yeah, we lost 4 American service members, sadly, during exercises. Something we should always remember, even when they're just doing exercises, those men and women are putting their lives on the line. They lost their lives, apparently, in an accident, although we don't have an investigation, in Lithuania. And despite everything that the Trump administration has been saying about places like Lithuania and our NATO partners, they lined the streets of the capital city, Vilnius, in solemn observance of the caskets being transferred back to American control, and then ultimately to be sent on to be buried with their, and returned to their loved ones. That is what the NATO alliance is all about, and it's shameful that the Trump administration is taking a big old dump on the alliance, because that's what friends and allies and partners are for.
It's
it
also
will move you deeply.
Yes,
if you watch that video.
It is a beautiful thing, and it is infuriating as a contrast to what Trump did, which was go golfing and not talk about it. We got a third tier response from Caroline Levitt, and that was it. Thanks so much, Phil. Thank you, Johnny Million.
Thanks, guys.
I think you're worth it. We'll see you guys next week. ChicagoSymphony.org tomorrow, 2 o'clock if you're in the Chicagoland area, and I will see you at one of the Vegas protests if you're down there. It's Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. We'll see you next week. So, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that was it. I thanks, Chicago.
Thank you, Chicago. Yes,
I'm glad I remembered. I wanted to add that in our discussion this week.
Me too.
Because
that
was deeply moving. I mean, I got weepy.
Me too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was like there were 2 big moments where I got weepy this week. That and when Cory Booker yielded the floor. I don't know if you saw his last moment where he goes, and with that, I yield the Madam President, I yield the floor. Like that one, I literally takes your breath away. That whole you don't realize how much it's going to affect you as you're watching this go on. And when he finally did it, after beating Strom Thurmond's record, which is again in and of itself a dunk worth doing, right?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
That's
have a black man beat Strom Thurmond's record
during Trump's term.
Putting Thurmond's legacy in the rearview mirror. I'm all for that.
Right. So exactly. So
that guy.
Well, and again, repentant at the end of his life, but still celebrated by Trump's circle for what he did before he repented. That's the part they want to forget, is allegedly him coming around later, having a black granddaughter, I think it was, right? That he had, right? And that he had actually fathered a child, a black child as well, a daughter as well. And finally coming around to that or whatever. And again, do you take it seriously, or is this just the politics of the day and he's just enough of a snake to know better? It doesn't matter.
A deathbed conversion.
Yeah, you got to take that with a grain of salt. No, God, I totally was on your side this whole time, right? Or whatever. Yeah. But either way, I'm going to let you guys go because I am going to head down with Summer to the protest here. And so I will talk to you guys next week. Phil, Wednesday, you good?
You run into Wednesday should be good. You run into any Ukrainians or folks flying the Ukrainian flag, you say them thank you for me.
I will indeed. And Johnny Million, your awesomeness. That's all there is. And and to you, I say,
hello there. I keep raising the floor. I promise.
Yes, that's the entire purpose.
That was really cool, by the way.
So I will see you next week. All right, I'll let you guys go.
Wait,
don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. I get to at least start the end of my show before you guys give me a black screen. Just have some quality of production. Damn. Okay, now you're fine. Now you can go. Now you're free to go. All right, bye. Johnny. All right. Thank you guys. Hold on. I got to turn this down anyway. So, thank you guys so much, chat room. Appreciate you being with me today. I've got to set up a better system where I can see, like, we can arrange questions and we can arrange. I think it might be in the. Yeah, it might be in the Discord or something like that, and then set up something where I can show the when you guys super chat, because I really appreciate it. But I wish I could show it on screen more without it going bling during the show on the radio. It's okay on my show, but like on the radio, it tends to like peg their meters. So I turn off the alerts when they're doing it. So there's a workaround. I know. I'll work on it, but I want you guys to know I appreciate it. Thank you guys for the greatest support you can possibly give, which is your eyeballs and your ears. So I appreciate it. Don't take it for granted. Never will. And I will see you guys later on. Now I have to go. I'm off to protest. I'm going to do it. All right.
Man's got to know his limitations.
I guess what I learned most of all was that you should always take responsibility for your actions, unless you don't have to.
We need you. Hell, I need you. I'm a mess without you. I miss you so damn much. I miss being with you. I miss being near you. I miss your laugh. I miss your scent. I miss your musk. When this all gets sorted out, I think you and me should get an apartment together. Okay, you guys aren't privy to all the new shit, so, but hey, that's what you pay me for.
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to. And you have to do it.
The kidney has a very special place in the heart. Action replays in magnified fortune. I values free health care for illegal. To me, Corona means Italy.
Shut up and never say anything again as long as you live.
We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.
They have a lot of earth. They have a lot of earth.
When they gaze upon Yosemites.
They have a lot of earth.
So I've cooked up a story and dropped the 6 of us in a meat grinder. I have a bad feeling about this.
How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, did you get out of your cell?
5 eggs.
I like wood. Deeper and longer.
What?
I had a beat off.
Something strange happened to me this morning.
Was it a dream where you see yourself standing in sort of sun god robes on a pyramid with 1,000 naked women screaming and throwing little pickles at you?
No.
Why am I the only person that has that dream?